Alright, moving on to the second versus match of the twist today. And remember, guys, vote. You guys can vote on the characters that I put out on this list. That's the whole idea of it. Not trying to sound like a jerk here, it's just that some people, when I do these, vote for, say, different characters. But anyway, this time around I'm talking about pulp heroes. Now, there have been a variety of them, and these are all heroes that have been around before Superman. Now, Superman was technically the first super-powered hero, but these are the guys that came long before him. These guys were technically the first heroes. And I'm going to talk about them. Kicking off this list is, at the forefront, the Green Hornet. Probably the best known of the pulp heroes. Now, the Green Hornet's now part of the Dynamite Comics. Britt Reed and his trustful sidekick Kato, taking on mobsters, pretending to be the bad guys when they're really the good guys. We know that whole shtick. Different sort of gadgets, a gas gun, the Black Beauty, basically the car that came long before the Batmobile. And, yeah, you know, pretty iconic character nowadays, especially with the new comics. There's been nothing but hype about with the Green Hornet. I've been meaning to read the Green Hornet comics from Dynamite. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I've been meaning to read them. It's just that I can't. There's always something else in the way. But yeah, Green Hornet. Now let's move on to the next ones. And up next is the Phantom. Now the Phantom is another character. Technically, he's known as like another character that lives out in the jungle. Fights poachers, treasure hunters, all kinds of crazy things. Friend to all animals, as the Defenders of the Earth theme would say. There's been hundreds of people who have taken the title of the Phantom. Especially, I think Dynamite Comics is doing a comic book series called The Last Phantom. Another cool character. I always found him interesting, but that movie was kind of bad. That live-action movie they did about the Phantom was just kind of terrible. I'm not going to lie. But if you like it, that's fine. If anyone out there who likes it, that's fine. But yeah, you gotta give respect to the Phantom. But moving on. The Shadow. Another iconic character. Only the Shadow knows. This is another character I can't wait for Dynamite to... Dynamite's been really taking the pulp heroes a lot, and the Shadow, I can't wait for his new ongoing comics. Out of all the pulp characters, the Shadow has actually been my second favorite. There's another character on here that I really just enjoy. Just another dark character. Always carrying those two handguns and always dealing out some real justice out there, long before Batman or anyone else. But moving on, up next is Flash Gordon, Master of the Impossible, as the Queen song would say. Flash Gordon, probably my favorite of the pulp characters. Flash Gordon embodies everything I love about campy space travel and whatnot. Flash Gordon was a big inspiration for Star Trek, among other things. Flash Gordon is basically a guy who was teleported into a world where he had to fight the evil Emperor Ming. We all know the story. This guy is he's just a normal human being. And he's fought aliens, monsters, all kinds of crazy shit. And now, again, Dynamite. Yeah, Dynamite. They're really publishing all the pulp characters, like I said. Is not only going to be returning to comics to fight Emperor Ming, but also Adolf Hitler. I'm curious to know how they're going to handle that. But, moving on. Dick Tracy. Moving on now to Dick Tracy. Another iconic character from the pulp comics, excuse me. Dick Tracy, probably had what I always found interesting about the Dick Tracy comics was that he always had these weird-ass sounding villains. All his villains had all the weirdest names, like Screwball and Mumbles and all them. All kinds of weird names, and I think they're just more like insults for the most part. But Dick Tracy was a detective wearing the iconic yellow jacket. And actually, my friend the Mount Vernon kid's probably one of his favorite characters, and he keeps saying if Dynamite keeps doing what they're doing with all these pulp characters, out of all of them, he really wants to see Dick Tracy get his a new comic book series. I wouldn't mind that either. Dick Tracy's another cool character, another detective thing. And another thing I'm going to point out with a lot of these pulp characters, that a lot of these guys just wear trench coats of different colors. A hat and a trench coat, for the most part. A lot of these guys, so if you're noticing a trend with all the other characters, yeah. I guess it was just, that was long before costumes. Well, the Phantom the these guys, their costumes are just hats, occasional masks, and a trench coat. That was it. among their clothes, but the trench coat is what really made them stand out. Before capes, there was trench coats. But moving on. Moving on now to Doc Savage. Now, Doc Savage, aka the Man of Bronze. This guy was before Superman, the Man of Steel. There was Savage, the Man of Bronze. Now, Doc Savage was basically a guy with bulletproof skin. You could say he was superpowered, I suppose. Doc Savage is now part of the DC Comics, although I don't know what they're doing with him in DC relaunch. I don't even know if they'll keep the rights, or maybe they'll sell them off along with the other character, the next character on here. But Doc Savage was an incredibly strong man. Was a strong superhero. I wouldn't say superpowered, although his skin was very tough. He was just a guy who fought. He was like Indiana Jones, you could say, like a very strong Indiana Jones, intelligence and strength put together, as well as, he's an excellent hand-to-hand fighter. So yeah. But moving on now to the last of this last character on this versus match with a twist, and that's Will Eisner's The Spirit. Now, The Spirit was again with the trench coats and the hat. This guy had, you could say, a power he couldn't. Forget the movie. That movie wasn't that great. I mean, but again, I personally didn't care much for The Spirit. But if anyone out there who did like the movie, that's your thing. I'm no grudge against you. No ill will. Everyone, to each his own, I always say. If you liked it, that's fine by me. But The Spirit in the comics, he basically couldn't age, or age real slow, but he was another great detective, kind of campy as well. He always, like Dick Tracy, The Spirit sometimes usually had this comedic humor to him, like, oh, well, took out these gun runners. What am I going to do now? Yeah, I wouldn't say make jokes, but he usually had like this chipper attitude to him for the most part. He wasn't like all dark and gritty. The Spirit, well, at least in the DC comics, I think they if I remember right, DC also collected a lot of the Will Eisner Spirit books as well. But yeah. Now again, these guys are a lot of pulp characters. Some of them came before, a majority of them came before Superman. Which is why I keep bringing up Superman, is because Superman was like the first real superhero with all these different powers and whatnot. And but there were heroes before him, like Green Hornet and the Shadow. However, these other characters were like for mystery and crime stories. I didn't put Batman in here because Batman's DC Comics, and these guys were in novels and magazines and among other things, and radio plays. Let's not forget that a lot of these guys were part of radio plays before they got TV shows and comics. So, and they fall into the pulp genre, the pulp hero genre. So that's why I wanted to use all of them, even though before anyone says, well, they're not pulp characters, they came after Superman. But that's why I wanted to put them in here and list them as pulp characters. But yeah. Anyway, you guys vote up on which of these 7 heroes who is the best pulp character. I really want to know. And, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed these 2 versus match of the twists, and later.